KirTop here, and these are 100 finds on the bottom of lakes and seas that no one expected to see. Stationary underwater objects. There are many stationary anomalous objects hidden in the oceans that still remain a mystery to scientists. Even if we put aside myths such as the legends of Atlantis, the list of interesting finds is still impressive. One of the most famous is the Inagui Monument, located near the Ryukyu Islands, not far from the Japanese Yonaguni. These are stone structures located at a shallow depth that have regular geometric shapes. Despite the fact that most scientists consider them to be a natural geological formation, many researchers and pseudo-archaeologists are trying to prove that these stones are the result of human activity. Another mystery is the megalith found at the bottom of the Gulf of Pantelleria Vecchia in the Tunisian Strait. This is a huge stone, 12 meters long and weighing 15 tons, in which there are 3 round holes. Based on its structure, it is assumed that it was processed by man in the Mesolithic, about 15,000 years ago. However, rock analysis showed that its age could be much higher, more than 40,000 years, which casts doubt on its origin. The Cuban underwater city is another mysterious discovery made in 2001 off the west coast of Cuba. With the help of sonar, geometric structures resembling pyramids and rings consisting of granite blocks were discovered. These findings raised a lot of questions among researchers, as they could be both natural formations and the result of human activity. These and other objects remain the subject of active research and discussion because their origin can reveal a lot of unknown things about ancient civilizations and the nature of the ocean depths. Icy ruins under snow. We are used to thinking of the Arctic as a place where only icy emptiness reigns, lifeless, empty, devoid of traces of civilization. But what if this is not so? What if under the thickness of glaciers there are not just traces of long-vanished peoples, but entire lost cities? Satellite research in recent years has led to the discovery of anomalous forms under the ice crust, which may indicate ancient ruins hidden deep in the depths of the north. These cities, according to some scientists, may be much older than the earliest of the civilizations known to us. Mesopotamia, Egypt, ancient India, all these peoples could have been simply a continuation of something greater and more mysterious than we can imagine. How is this possible? How could it happen that such cities are hidden under a multi-kilometer layer of ice? Today, these anomalies are at the level of hypotheses, but each new study only strengthens the mystery. Satellite images taken in the most remote corners of the planet show strange shapes and lines that resemble the structure of buildings, streets, and even entire cities. And if these hypotheses are confirmed, what if these glaciers are not just barriers but burial grounds of ancient civilizations? Ice caps that hide not only climate change but also forgotten epics of humanity. Surprisingly, perhaps these cities were victims of global catastrophes that preceded the ice ages. After all, is there anything more ancient than what is preserved by eternal ice? This question excites scientists more than ever. And perhaps if we unravel the mystery hidden under centuries-old ice, we will revise not only the history of our civilizations, but also the very understanding of how our world developed. What the largest ship of antiquity looked like. The need for huge warships appeared in mankind long before steam engines and steel hulls. Already thousands of years ago, the fleet was considered the most important instrument of influence and domination. Through it, borders were strengthened, territories were conquered, and key resources were gained. It is believed that the foundation of ancient military shipbuilding was laid by the Diadochi, the successors of Alexander the Great. It was they who first began to build real military giants, such as Polyares and Tessaracanters, comparable in scale to modern battleships. One of the most impressive ships of antiquity was the Egyptian Tessaracanter, built in the 3rd century BC by order of King Ptolemy IV Philopator. It was a real floating fortress 130 meters long and 22 meters high. The ship accommodated about 4,000 rowers, not counting the crew, marines, and supplies. The name Tessaracantera translates as 40 row, according to the number of rows of oars. The exact number of oars is controversial. Researchers cite figures from 300 to 600. According to surviving descriptions, the ship had powerful weapons, a ram, catapults, and battle towers, and outwardly resembled a mobile fortress. Its sides were decorated with wooden carved vines, crocodiles, and other mythical creatures were painted on the stern, and the bow was crowned with a 5-meter figure of Aeolus, the Lord of the Winds. Inside there were halls, statues, even libraries, and according to some sources, stables. All this spoke more about status than about practical military necessity. Tessera Contera was more a symbol of power than an effective ship. Due to its size, it did not have full maneuverability and could not even go to sea on its own. It was towed by rowboats. Nevertheless, its very existence was an engineering breakthrough. The Egyptian Tessera Contera is not just an archaic ship, but a shining example of how ancient technology could reach incredible scales. Yes, it did not become a battle legend, but it certainly went down in history as one of the most ambitious naval projects of its time. Noah's Ark found. According to the Bible, Noah's Ark saved people and animals from the Great Flood. Now, 5,000 years later, researchers have once again turned their attention to one of the most mysterious places, the Durupanar Formation in Turkey. This 163-meter-long structure surprisingly matches the biblical description of the legendary vessel in Sicily. Scientists from Istanbul Technical University and Agri Ibrahim Sesin University have been studying the area since 2021. A recent analysis of 30 soil samples revealed clay, marine sediments, and shellfish remains dating back 3,500 to 5,000 years. This suggests that the region did indeed experience a massive flood. The formation is located just 30 kilometers from Mount Ararat, where, according to the Bible, the ark came to rest after the flood. The dimensions of the structure are also close to the biblical ones. The supposed length of the ark is 157 meters and Durupanar is 163. However, many geologists are skeptical about the hypothesis. They believe that Durupanar is just a natural formation. Despite this, the discovery continues to arouse interest and new research. Lard from World War II. For decades after heavy storms, the sea on St. Cyrus Beach in Scotland has periodically washed up with lard which ended up at sea due to the sinking of a ship during the Second World War. Recently, the waves washed up 4 more pieces of lard, each one retaining the shape of the barrels in which they were probably stored all those years ago. These unusual relics became known to locals after the merchant ship carrying the lard was sunk by bombs. It is believed that with each new storm, the wreck gradually releases some of its cargo, washing up on the shore in fatty blocks. Locals are familiar with this phenomenon and claim that the lard, despite the crust of barnacles that covers it, is in good condition and is suitable for use. During the war, when access to lard was limited, such finds became real treasures, helping people survive difficult times. Incredible discovery under the Nile. Archaeologists have made an amazing discovery under the Nile in the Aswan area, a collection of ancient Egyptian artifacts and rock carvings dating back to the era when the city experienced a massive flood. The relics date back to the reigns of pharaohs such as Amenhotep III, Thutmose IV, and Psammetichus II. Aswan, about 4,500 years ago, was an important trading and military center. Gold, wood, and spices were exchanged here, and local granite quarries supplied materials for the construction of temples, obelisks, and pyramids. However, after the construction of the Aswan Dam, most of the city was underwater. A Franco-Egyptian archaeological mission discovered unique rock reliefs depicting pharaohs, hieroglyphic inscriptions, and other sculptural elements. The work was carried out using modern technologies such as underwater scanning, photogrammetry, and 3D modeling. These methods allowed us to document the artifacts we found in detail and create digital copies of them. Of particular interest are the images of Amenhotep III, who ruled Egypt for about 40 years and left a rich legacy. His burial place was in the Theban necropolis on the west bank of the Nile, opposite modern Luxor. Unfortunately, many monuments associated with his era were damaged by floods, but the new find gives hope for the restoration of these historical relics. Skeleton Lake. Hundreds of human skeletons have been found at the bottom of Rupkund Lake in the Indian Himalayas, earning it the nickname Skeleton Lake. The skeletons vary widely in age, and it is still unclear how they all died. Previously, it was thought that they could have been the victims of a single disaster, such as a powerful storm that killed a large group of people. Recent research has only complicated the mystery. Scientists analyzed the DNA of 38 bodies found and found that the remains belonged to people from different eras, thousands of years apart. These people arrived at the lake at different times, disproving the theory that a single group died en masse. The research began a decade ago when geneticist Kumarasamy Thangaraj of the Indian Center for Cellular and Molecular Biology sequenced the mitochondrial DNA of 72 skeletons. Some were of Indian origin, but some of the remains belonged to people with DNA typical of Western Europeans, particularly Crete and Greece. Interestingly, the time range of these finds also turned out to be varied. Most of the bones date back to the 7th to 10th centuries AD, but among them there are also remains dating back to the 19th to 20th centuries. The causes of death of these people remain unclear, which adds to the mystery of this place. Place where you can find a UFO. American scientist, professor at Northeastern University Brian Helmuth, claims that the search for alien life on Earth should start with the ocean. In his opinion, the oceans and seas hide many mysteries, and people have only a superficial idea of their depths. Helmuth, not being a specialist in the field of UFOs but having knowledge of oceanology, believes that something related to extraterrestrial civilizations can be hidden underwater. I will add that oceanographer Paula Bontempi recently joined a special NASA commission for the study of unidentified objects. Earlier, NASA announced the appointment of a new head of UFO research, Mark McInerney, who previously represented the organization in the Pentagon. This emphasizes the seriousness of the approach to the study of this phenomenon. Madagascar, 10th century. Southwest of the island, Igorombe region. On the Tenica Plateau, a team from the University of Bern uncovers a whole stone world. Terraces, niches carved into the rock, artificial pools and traces of a quarry, scattered over an area of more than 8 square kilometers. Radiocarbon dating of coal from the cultural layer confidently places it between the 10th and 12th centuries, and here's where things get truly interesting. Individual elements of the complex are eerily similar to Iranian Zoroastrian funerary monuments, towers of silence, where bodies were left in the open air and the cleaned bones were later transferred to stone vaults. Doorways are visible in the niches of Tenica, and some rooms replicate the layout of Persian crypts. There are no direct remains, which could have been erased by the climate, but the architectural logic strongly suggests the presence of groups with Iranian religious roots in Madagascar in the early Middle Ages. Fragments of Chinese and South Asian ceramics from the 11th to 14th centuries add another layer. The island was so tightly connected to Indian Ocean trade networks that even a settlement 200 kilometers from the coast is part of transoceanic exchanges. If this hypothesis is confirmed, the textbook diagrams of the two sources of Madagascar's settlement will have to be rewritten, adding a Persian connection and land communications across the inland plateau. This isn't man-made. In 1995, divers first noticed strange circles on the Pacific Ocean floor, complete with a maze and rims decorated with shells. Initially, they were attributed to currents and the mythical underwater architects. A real explanation for the discovery only emerged in 2011 when an underwater photographer captured the architect itself, a white-spotted pufferfish, Torqueguiner albomaculosus. The design turned out to be simple and quite intriguing. The male plows the sand with his pectoral and caudal fins for several days. The diameter of the structure is up to 2 meters. Large ridges along the edges catch the current, while in the center the fish sifts the sand and deposits the finest grains. On top are neat decorations of shells and pebbles. All this isn't just for show. The fine sand holds the eggs, the rims dampen currents, and the shells help direct the water jets. Females choose a mate based on the quality of the nest construction. The cleaner the center and smoother the combs, the higher the chances of laying a clutch. After spawning, the nesting circle briefly becomes an incubator. When the larvae hatch, the structure gradually disintegrates. A year later, the cycle repeats, in the same place or nearby. It turns out that architecture and design here are not metaphors, but working solutions. Form is directly related to the survival of the offspring. Where it's easy to see traces of an ancient civilization, it's often worth taking a closer look at the behavior of living creatures. The pufferfish doesn't build a city, but it solves an engineering problem, and it does so with textbook precision. Select the material, consider the current, protect the center, and attract a mate. Sometimes this is precisely what intelligence looks like in nature. Without legends, but with results. Viking and the Cross. In the south of Sweden, near the city of Linköping, archaeologists were exploring an old quarry, an ordinary place where you would hardly expect discoveries, but on the top of the hill among the stones they came across a strange structure, a lonely burial. A circle of tightly packed stones, in the center, a stone coffin. It stood high, alone, overlooking the plain, as if the one lying inside had to look at something even after death. The coffin dates back to the 10th century, a time when Sweden was on the border of two worlds. Paganism was still strong, but Christianity was already penetrating life, and this burial is a reflection of this transition. Inside lay a man, with him an axe and a knife. Remnants of fabric, probably from ritual clothing. Everything suggests that he was from the top of society, perhaps a warrior, perhaps a representative of the nobility, but the way the coffin itself was arranged is no longer Scandinavian tradition. The stone cladding, orientation, location on the top of the hill, all this is already under the influence of Christian symbolism. Such hybrid burials are rare. Most are either completely pagan or already designed according to all the rules of the new religion. Here is a transition, a mixture of rituals. The last pagans still bury with weapons, but they already look at the cross, or at least recognize that times are changing. This man died on the border of eras. He no longer believed in Thor as they believed before him, but he did not accept Christ as his grandchildren's children will accept him. Tatar screws. In 1996, local geologists examined an abandoned quarry near the village of Kucherovo in Tatarstan and split a sandstone boulder. Inside was a metal bolt the length of a finger with clear carvings around the rod. The photo quickly made it into the newspapers. Supposedly, the technology of prehistoric builders was frozen in the stone of the Jurassic period. The legend gained popularity. They talked about a hidden mine where they found nuts and washers, and one worker swore that the threads on the bolt were exactly like the M8. When the sample was sent to Kazan University, no metallurgy was found there. The bolt turned out to be a limestone column impregnated with ferrous minerals. Under a microscope, the threads turned into discs, identical segments of an ancient crinoid sea lily, a fragment of which got stuck in the bottom silt millions of years ago and mineralized along with the sand. Such stems, screws, are known to paleontologists all over the world. If you split the rock crosswise, they look like perfect washers, and if you split them lengthwise, they look like a spiral. Science seems to have put everything in its place, but the stone with the bolt still lies in the school museum with a sign, Mystery of Nature. Tour guides smile. One blurry photo is enough for a multi-million crinoid to turn into a part of an unknown mechanism. And bloggers and pseudoscientific archaeologists are once again trying to rewrite history. Something unexpected at the bottom of the sea. Off the coast of Sicily, fishermen spotted something unusual sticking out of the seabed, leading to a rare archaeological discovery. In January 2022, the remains of an ancient shipwreck were discovered at a depth of about 70 meters near the Vendicari Nature Reserve. When a team of marine archaeologists dove to the site, they found more than 40 rare Roman amphorae, many of which were preserved in their original positions as if they had just been loaded onto the ship. The amphorae, which are estimated to be between 1900 and 2100 years old, are a unique type of pottery known as Richborough 527. This type of amphorae, with wide mouths, a spiral design, and a pointed bottom, were first found in Richborough, England, and have since been found in Lipari, Italy. Scientists believe that these amphorae were used to transport potassium alum, a mineral mined in Lipari. The singing sarcophagi of the Serapeum. Under the sands of Saqqara lies a 300-meter-long gallery, the Serapeum. In its side niches stand 40 granite boxes, each weighing over 60 tons. Egyptologists call them sarcophagi of the sacred Apis bulls, but inside they are almost empty, only rare remains of bones. But the main thing here is the acoustics. When acousticians from Massachusetts first turned on a low-frequency generator inside one of the boxes in 2019, the granite began to sing. A perfectly pure tone of 110 Hz, which coincides with the resonant frequency of the human chest. If you stand inside, the sound literally vibrates in the bones. Ancient priests could have used this to put themselves, and perhaps the bulls, into an altered state. But then why the half-meter-thick lids polished from the inside to a mirror? There is a hypothesis. The boxes were not tombs, but resonators that amplify the vibrations of the earth. Their polished inner surface reflected sound multiple times, creating standing waves. Some researchers suggest that the complex could have contained an entire sound organ, a system of chambers tuned to different frequencies. If so, the Serapeum is not a cemetery. It is an ancient laboratory of acoustic energy. The smell of Egyptian mummies. Scientists have studied the smells of ancient Egyptian mummies for the first time, revealing unexpected details about the embalming process. The analysis showed that the mummies exude woody, spicy, and sweet aromas associated with the use of natural preservatives. The researchers studied 9 mummies, ranging in age from the New Kingdom to the Byzantine period. Using gas chromatography and mass spectrometry, they determined the composition of the embalming substances: pine, cedar, and juniper resins, myrrh, frankincense, spices, herbs, vegetable oils, animal fat, and wax. According to experts, the discovery will help preserve ancient artifacts and also open up new opportunities for museums. Now visitors will be able to not only see, but also smell ancient Egypt, immersing themselves in the atmosphere of that era. Smells played an important role in the rituals of the Egyptians. A pleasant aroma symbolized divinity and purity, while a foul odor was associated with decay and impurity. Even after 5,000 years, mummies retained incense, emphasizing the importance of this aspect in ancient culture. The oldest book in Europe. In January 1962, during excavations in the Derveni area near Thessaloniki, Greek archaeologists discovered an ancient papyrus in the funeral pyre of a noble Macedonian. Dating back to around 340–320 BC, it was the first scroll to be found on the Greek mainland. Because the manuscript is literary in nature, UNESCO has recognized it as the oldest book known in Europe. The discovered scroll was named the Derveni Papyrus after the place where it was found. It contains reflections on religious rites related to the fate of the soul after death, and discussions of a lost poetic text attributed to the legendary Orpheus, a singer and musician from Greek mythology. Researchers believe that the unknown author belonged to the circle of followers of the philosopher Anaxagoras and wrote for adherents of Orphism, a special religious movement, supposedly monotheistic and focused on the purification of the soul. It was the fire of the funeral pyre that preserved the papyrus fragments from the damp soil, but at the same time seriously damaged them. Scientists managed to extract about 266 charred parts and later assembled them into 26 columns of text without the lower halves of the lines. A full publication of the deciphered manuscript appeared only half a century later. The moment Ernest Shackleton's ship sank. It was a miracle when the Endurance was discovered under the ice of Antarctica in 2022. Now, thanks to modern 3D scans, we can see the ship that sank in 1915 in incredible detail. These scans show what the ship looked like when it was trapped in ice during Ernest Shackleton's Imperial Trans-Antarctic expedition. The technology used to scan it captured details such as plates scattered across the deck, a boot on the railing, and even traces of a signal flare fired to bid farewell to the ship. The Endurance is almost completely intact, as if it had sunk only recently. These unique 3D scans allow scientists to study the ship, which is considered one of the most inaccessible in the world due to its remote location and ice cover. 5,000-year-old wine. A team of scientists from the University of Vienna, led by archaeologist Christian Kohler, is exploring the burial ground of Queen Merit-Neith in Abydos, the greatest ruler around the 31st century BC. Recent discoveries highlight its important role in history. Archaeologists have discovered 5,000-year-old wine and many other funerary objects. These discoveries confirm that Merit-Neith was the first female pharaoh, preceding the famous Hatshepsut. What makes Merit-Neith special is that she had a unique monumental tomb in the first royal necropolis of Abydos. The mystery of her identity has not yet been solved. During the excavations, many funerary objects were found, including hundreds of beautifully preserved wine jugs. Some of them are still sealed and contain ancient wine. Inscriptions indicate that Merit-Neith controlled key government bodies, such as the treasury, confirming her exceptional place in history. The Queen's funerary complex at Abydos, consisting of the graves of 41 courtiers and her tomb, was built of mud brick, clay, and wood. Research has shown that construction was carried out gradually over a long period of time. Drone saw an ancient city. Romania, Neamt County. A fortified settlement about 5,000 years old was found in a dense forest. It is not visible from the ground. The ramparts and ditches are completely hidden by the treetops. LiDAR, a laser that scans the terrain through the foliage and builds an accurate elevation model, helped. Drones flew over the massif, and a plan appeared on the screen. Platforms on the tops, closed lines of ramparts, deep ditches, stretching for hundreds of meters in places. These are not random embankments. Defense lines overlap the ridges, entrances are controlled, and terraces for housing and workshops can be seen inside. Such a volume of excavation work is impossible without organization. You need a team, a project, and time. Field checks confirm the model. In the sections, there is a cultural layer and charcoal for future dating. For now, archaeologists are working carefully. First a map, then spot excavations. Based on the shape of the ramparts and ditches, the monument dates back to the transition from the Neolithic to the Bronze Age. 10,000-year-old chewing gum. 10,000 years ago in what is now Sweden, a group of teenagers chewed birch tar, similar to children chewing gum today. They could not even imagine that in the future, scientists would analyze their chewing remains and find out many interesting facts about their diet, lifestyle, and even health. 3 pieces of birch pitch used as glue in the Stone Age were found in the 1990s at a site called Huseby Cleve. Microbial DNA analysis of the resin showed high levels of bacteria associated with gum disease, such as Treponema denticola and Streptococcus aeruginosus. The study of these samples showed that the ancient teenagers suffered from caries and periodontal disease and also ate deer, trout, hazelnuts, and processed fox and wolf fur. Scientists have also found traces of birds and other animals, indicating their use as food and the processing of bones into tools. Traces of mistletoe were found in the gums of the specimens, suggesting the plant's possible use in medicine or as a poison for arrowheads. The discovery provides a unique insight into the lives of hunter-gatherers on the west coast of Scandinavia 9,700 years ago, allowing us to learn about their diet and dental problems. And we are only talking about very old chewing gum that children chewed. And thanks to modern technologies, they can already tell so much about the lifestyle of people who lived 12,000 years ago. Remains of the last crocodile in Europe. Crocodiles migrated to Europe from Africa, but climate change led to their extinction. In the province of Granada, Spain, paleontologists have found a crocodile tooth that is approximately 4.5 million years old. This instance was one of the last in Europe. It is believed that about 6.2 million years ago, crocodiles crossed the dry Mediterranean Sea, crossing from Africa to Europe. Excavations at this site began in the 2000s. During this time, over 2,000 fossils were discovered here, including the remains of elephants, reptiles, and fish. The newly found tooth, scientists say, belonged to a crocodile close to modern African Nile crocodiles. When the Sahara was an ocean, now it seems lifeless. Endless sand, sun-baked rocks, rare caravans. But once upon a time, millions of years ago, the Sahara was completely different. It was an ocean. The Tethys Ocean is huge, warm, inhabited by ancient creatures. Ammonites, sea urchins, corals, giant reptiles. All this lived where today, lizards barely survive. Under a layer of sand, imprints of seashells, layers of limestone, and fragments of coral are still preserved. Geologists have found traces of deltas, channels, coastlines, everything that says water once splashed here. But the ocean is gone, and in its place another story arose. Hundreds of thousands of years later, people settled on this land. Some of the most ancient, whose name still sounds through the sand, the Berbers, or as they call themselves, the Amezi, descendants of those who survived the climate change, the disappearance of rivers, the drying up of lakes. They stayed when others left. Their rock paintings in Tassili and Ager are a real library of prehistoric consciousness. People hunting with bows, holidays, scenes of love and war. Even the image of creatures with rounded helmets seems to be from another reality. Some believe that this is an allegory, some believe it is evidence of contacts with another mind. But the essence is the same. When the Sahara was still breathing, the Berbers already knew how to tell their stories. They knew where to find water, how to survive when the days are hot and the nights are icy. They ruled Numidia, traded with Rome, fought with Egypt, and then they disappeared from the map, but not from the earth. The Arab conquests drove them out of the cities into the desert and mountains. But the culture survived. To this day, in remote villages, the Berber language is heard and memories that are thousands of years old live on. And in the desert itself, there are traces of a past that is much more ancient. Stone mushrooms. At first glance, they are just rocks. But if you look closely, the shape is striking. A massive cap of hard stone rests on a thin, corroded stem. These formations are the result of differential erosion. The wind, carrying sand, polishes the soft rocks for years, leaving the hard ones standing. Each such mushroom is like a timestamp. Temporary, but proud. Their legs gradually become thinner, and one day the cap will collapse. They live for hundreds, thousands of years, but they are still doomed, like the ocean, like civilizations. And only memory, in stones, in pollen, in sand, survives everything. Are there other traces of this ancient civilization, and what can they tell us about the past that we still do not understand? UFO landing pad. Gary Dixon, 62, from Flint, Wales, was driving to Llangollen when he was caught by a 15-meter white circular disc slowly rotating on the surface of the River Dee in Denbighshire. He was so intrigued by this unusual object that he decided to walk a few kilometers to study it closer. The disc was perfectly round and rotated counterclockwise, creating the impression of a mysterious natural phenomenon. Gary, who was planning to spend a winter day in Llangollen, was so fascinated by what he saw that he stayed to watch it for about half an hour. According to his observations, the disc made one rotation per hour. Ice discs, as it turns out, are not uncommon. This natural phenomenon is observed all over the world, from Russia and China to Scandinavia and North America. The first recorded sighting of an ice disk was in 1895 in the USA on the Mianus River in Connecticut. In recent years, such natural formations have attracted attention due to their impressive size. For example, in January 2019, a 100-meter wide ice disk was discovered on the Presumpscot River in Maine. But an even more impressive case occurred in Canada, where a giant rotating disk with a diameter of 200 meters was spotted on the Tahltan River, which was captured by satellite lenses. These unique ice formations have received different names: ice circles, frying pans, and carousels. Mysterious floating island. The floating island of El Ojo in Argentina has inspired many speculations and theories, from a UFO haven to a place where ancient spirits live. However, scientists give a more rational explanation for its existence, considering it to be the result of natural processes of erosion and the movement of water masses. This mysterious round island is located in the swampy delta of the Parana River. Its name means eye in translation, due to its striking resemblance to a perfectly round eye when viewed from above. The island attracted attention in 2016 when Argentine director Sergio Noispierre explored the area for a documentary. From a bird's-eye view, El Ojo impresses with its shape and purity. The water around it, despite its apparent blackness, is crystal clear, which is unusual for the turbid waters of the delta. The diameter of the island is 118 meters, and its rotation around its axis is a consequence of the action of currents, which also polish the shore of the lake, forming perfect outlines. This process is ongoing, and scientists believe that it explains the round appearance of the island and the lake. El Ojo first appeared on satellite images about 20 years ago. Its origins are still shrouded in mystery. How and when it separated from the mainland is still unknown. Locals, although they knew about its existence, preferred to avoid the place, believing that an ancient deity lived there. Some put forward theories about UFOs or even a Nazi base, but there is no evidence to support these versions. Not a biblical miracle. The famous biblical miracle of Moses allegedly parting the Red Sea to get the Israelites through was long considered a supernatural intervention. However, modern scientists offer a much more earthly explanation, and it is no less impressive. A new study has shown that about 3,500 years ago, weather and geographic conditions could well have created the effect described in the Old Testament. Scientists from the U.S. National Center for Atmospheric Research have used a computer model to prove that with a wind speed of about 100 kilometers per h blowing in the right direction, the water could have temporarily retreated, revealing land up to 5 kilometers wide, and then just as abruptly returned as a tsunami wave. The biblical description says that the Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all the night. The researchers are sure that the wind is the key to the mystery. The crossing point is now more often considered to be not the deep Gulf of Aqaba, but the shallower and smoother Gulf of Suez, where such a phenomenon would be possible. It is also there that Napoleon is known to have led his army through shallow waters during low tide in 1789, but almost drowned on the way back. There are other hypotheses. For example, the crossing could have been not through the Red Sea, but through Lake Tanis, the so-called Reed Sea mentioned in the original Hebrew. Or the water could have retreated due to an earthquake and tsunami, as happens in modern disasters when a wave pulls water far from the shore. One way or another, the solution to the ancient miracle may not be in violating the laws of nature, but in the ability to accurately calculate the time, place, and believe. The Oklo nuclear reactor. Gabon, 1972. A laboratory in France receives a batch of uranium ore and notices something strange. The important isotope uranium-235 is depleted by half, as if the fuel had already burned out. The news spreads around the world with the shocking information that an ancient nuclear power plant is hidden under the African jungle. Scientists rush to the site and drill dozens of wells. The picture is unexpected but earthly. 2 billion years ago, a rare combination of conditions was found here. Uranium-rich rock, pores between sandstone grains, and groundwater that slowly flowed through the ore. The water slowed down the neutrons and started a chain reaction until it boiled and stopped the process. After cooling, the formation filled with water again. The reactor clicked on and off for hundreds of thousands of years in a row, leaving behind a characteristic set of rare isotopes. No man-made nuclear power plant, no intervention by guests from outer space, just a successful geochemical oven assembled by nature itself. But the story about Oklo is still gripping. It turns out that the planet can build nuclear reactors without engineers. It has enough uranium, water, and time. Tomb in Tel Aviv. During construction in Palmachim Park near Tel Aviv, an ancient tomb with many artifacts was found. The Israel Antiquities Authority published a video showing clay vessels, bronze arrowheads, and spearheads. These ritual offerings are approximately 3,300 years old, dating back to the time of Ramses II. Archaeologist David Gelman suggests that the people buried with weapons may have been warriors or ship guards. Gelman considers the find surprising since the cave remained untouched for thousands of years. This is reminiscent of footage from a movie about Indiana Jones. Underground objects are preserved in their original form, as if ancient people left them yesterday. God Bes. Bes is one of the strangest gods of ancient Egypt. Small, bearded, with a protruding tongue, sometimes with lion-like features or 4 arms. He is not like any of the other gods. He was not feared, but not fully understood either. His images are often found in places where a person was especially vulnerable, in bedrooms, at the head of beds, in maternity wards, and also next to vessels that, as it turns out, contain substances for altered states of consciousness. Some researchers consider Bes not a god, but a guardian, a guide between worlds. He did not allow unclean spirits to enter the human body during sleep or ritual. But that's not all. In the late Greco-Roman magical papyri, the name of Bes is found in spells related to astral projection. One of the texts says, "Call upon him, and he will lead you through the flame of the stars." Perhaps the ancient Egyptians really believed that it was possible to leave the body, to move and receive some information. Some texts call it light sleep, others, the second wind of the soul. Bes was believed to not only protect in this state, but also open the gates. In one image, Bes stands in the center of a circle surrounded by 7 creatures with elongated heads and large eyes. They are not Egyptians, and not gods from the pantheon. Ice, 1.2 million years old. In the laboratory of the Alfred Wegener Institute, Bremerhaven, Germany, scientists are cutting up the oldest ice core on Earth, a cylinder 10 centimeters in diameter and 2.8 kilometers long. Raised from a height of 3,200 meters at the Concordia Station, Antarctica. Radioisotope dating indicates an age of more than 1.2 million years. This is twice as old as the previous record holder Epocha, 800,000 years. The atmosphere of the past is preserved in air bubbles. Glaciologists want to understand why the rhythm of glaciers changed 1,000,000 years ago. Instead of cycles every 41,000 years, the Earth switched to a periodicity of about 100,000 years. Comparison of concentrations of CO2, methane, and dust will provide direct data on the relationship between greenhouse gases and temperature. And here's an unexpected bonus. At the basal mark, the drill broke through a thin layer of ice and pulled out a chunk of granite, likely the upper edge of the Antarctic basement. Geologists will have a chance to date when the continent was covered in ice. The first results will be available in a year. This core will give scientists a long line of history and make climate models more accurate when it comes to CO2 growth. If you add water. We are used to thinking that life requires one simple ingredient, water. And then there is a temptation. What if we bring it where it does not exist? The Moon, Mars, Venus, Mercury. 4 different stories, 4 different endings. The Moon already has water, in the form of ice at the poles, hidden in the eternal darkness of craters. Add oceans, and we see a planet with stormy tides. But the Moon is too small to hold an atmosphere. The water will quickly evaporate into space, leaving only a short-lived sea. The Moon will not become a second home. It will remain a dead desert, only temporarily shiny. Mars looks more promising. There are glaciers there. There was water in ancient times. If we fill it with oceans, the planet will come alive. The air will become denser, clouds will appear, the climate will change. But Mars is not protected by a magnetic field, and the solar wind will gradually tear off the atmosphere. Any second Earth there will be temporary. In thousands of years, the water will go back into space. Venus is the other side of history. If you add water to a place with hellish heat and acid clouds, it will boil instantly. You will get an ocean of steam, the greenhouse effect will increase, the temperature will become even higher. It is impossible to flood Venus with water. It will only destroy it. To revive this world, you first need to cool it and destroy the dense atmosphere, an almost impossible task. Mercury is an extreme case. The closest planet to the Sun with a hot surface and an icy shadow in craters. Water will not linger there. It will boil during the day, freeze at night, and eventually evaporate into space. Mercury is too close to the star to support life. And then it becomes clear, just add water is not a solution. Only Earth turned out to be that unique platform where water can linger and work for life. The other worlds are too unstable, too hostile, or too small. The water there is not a source of life, but a reminder of how delicate the balance on our planet is. Pirates turned the village into a turtle hideaway. On the southern coast of Boa Vista Island, part of the Cape Verde archipelago, lie the ruins of an ancient fishing village called Curro Velho. Life was once in full swing here. People caught fish, harvested salt, and traded with other islands. However, a series of pirate attacks in the early 19th century forced residents to move to a more fortified city, and the village became deserted. Now, the vast sandy shore has been dubbed Santa Monica, after the Californian beach of the same name, and all that remains of the once bustling village are the remains of stone walls surrounded by sand and salt marshes. Boa Vista is only about 620 square kilometers in size, and no more than 9,000 people live there permanently. However, the island is known not only for its tourism industry and picturesque beaches, but also for its unique natural conditions. The quiet shores with abandoned houses of Curro Velho are popular with seabirds and turtles who lay their eggs in the sand. The growing tourist presence once threatened to disrupt their habitat, but environmental organizations managed to protect these areas and establish supervision of the nests. The name Boa Vista translates as beautiful view, and it truly reflects the charm of the island. And Curro Velho itself, founded by the Portuguese in the 17th century, seems to preserve the memory of those who once conquered these lands and fought for survival in difficult natural conditions for centuries. Lifebuoy. The Assyrians are known for their military achievements and technological innovations that have had a significant impact on history. They created the first regular army, introduced cavalry to replace chariots, and developed military engineering troops with siege weapons. These innovations made the Assyrians one of the most powerful military forces of their time. But in addition to their famous brutality on the battlefield, There is an interesting fact about how they solved the problem of crossing rivers. One of the unique inventions of the Assyrians was an individual flotation device, the prototype of a modern lifebuoy. Warriors used inflatable water skins filled with air to cross water obstacles. These water skins, made of animal skin, were easily inflated and helped to stay on the surface of the water, allowing warriors to safely cross rivers and avoid the danger of drowning. This simple yet brilliant idea was extremely effective and allowed the Assyrians to move quickly even through difficult water obstacles, giving them a tactical advantage. This invention can be considered an early predecessor of modern lifebuoys. Such water skins not only helped warriors, but were also used in everyday life to ferry people and goods. This method was practical and widely used in regions with large rivers and bodies of water. Eerie discovery under the floor. An ordinary day for Amelia turned into a real investigation. She noticed that one of the floorboards in her house was loose and decided to lift it to find out the reason. However, instead of a simple breakage, strange objects were found under the board. An old coin from 1904 and a small golden book. Opening the book, she discovered that the pages were unusually thick. Inside were old photographs, creepy images of the house, dark shadows in empty rooms, and mysterious portraits. Perhaps the house holds dark secrets of the past, or maybe the photographs have simply aged. However, Amelia herself was seriously scared by the discovery. She admitted that since then she has felt anxious and wants to know what other secrets her house is hiding. Engineering miracle in Egypt. Ancient Egypt continues to amaze modern researchers again. This time, an amazing tunnel was discovered under a temple in the ancient city of Taposiris Magna, which experts call a geometric miracle. The tunnel was found at a depth of 13 meters. Its length is 1305 meters, and its height is about 2 meters. It is carved into sandstone and resembles the famous Eupalinos tunnel on the Greek island of Samos, which is considered an engineering miracle. The exact purpose of the tunnel is still unknown, but some of its parts are flooded with water. Archaeologist Martinez, who has been searching for the lost tomb of Cleopatra VII since 2004, believes that the tunnel may lead to important discoveries. Taposiris Magna was founded around 280 BC by Ptolemy II, one of Cleopatra's ancestors. Archaeologists believe the temple was dedicated to Osiris and Isis, deities with whom Cleopatra was closely associated. The team also plans to explore the Mediterranean Sea, as a series of earthquakes between 320 and 1303 caused part of the temple to collapse into the water. In my previous videos, I described how tunnels were discovered connecting Lake Mariu to the Mediterranean. An artifact with a secret inscription. British teenager Lucas Cunliffe made an archaeological discovery while walking with his father in northern England. Using a metal detector, he found the pommel of a medieval sword that is over 700 years old. Experts say this late 13th century artifact is a real rarity. The bronze hilt is engraved with an inscription in Latin, Jesus, King of the Jews. Historical weapons expert Paul MacDonald noted that there are only 7 such finds, and all of them were made in Scotland. Historians suggest that this sword was used during the War of Scottish Independence. It may even be associated with the reign of Robert the Bruce, the legendary King of Scotland. A pyramid that sunk before history. At the depth of 30 meters near the island of Yonaguni, there is a stone pyramid on the ocean floor. Smooth steps, terraces, arches, openings, everything looks as if it is a building and not random rocks. The age of the object is about 10,000 years. That is, it was built before the Sumerians, Egyptians, and the first cities. Scientists are still arguing. Some are sure that this is a trick of nature, while others consider Yonaguni to be evidence of a previously unrecognized civilization. If they are right, this could completely change our understanding of when and how human history began. What if this is not just an erroneous trace of nature, but a trace of some civilization? What if there is a history hidden under this ocean that we do not know? Ribitters and bioducks. If it seems that the sound anomalies associated with marine UFOs were recorded only by American sailors, then this is not so. Soviet submariners also encountered similar mysterious phenomena. In the 1970s, the crews of Soviet nuclear submarines detected strange sounds reminiscent of the croaking of frogs, which quickly spread in the waters of the North Atlantic, especially in areas controlled by NATO. These sounds were so unusual that they became the subject of numerous discussions and hypotheses. The sounds recorded by the acoustics of Soviet submarines almost always accompanied them and moved at an amazing speed, up to 150 knots. However, active sonar did not record any objects that could be the source of these noises. It was assumed that these sounds came from something too small to detect or were even living creatures. For several years, scientists tried to figure out the nature of these strange rebidders, putting forward various theories, from unexplored phenomena occurring in submarine nuclear reactors to vibrations at the boundary of water layers with different temperatures and salinities. However, the Soviet Academy of Sciences put forward a more likely explanation. The sounds were biological in nature and could come from whales or unknown deep-sea mollusks. Submariners, in turn, did not agree with this, believing that the rebidders were too different from any known sea creatures. Over time, a more realistic version appeared, proposed by skeptics. According to this theory, the submariners mistook the sounds of active buoys dropped from NATO anti-submarine aircraft for the rebidding. These devices, equipped with water-filled power sources, could produce noises similar to croaking. This version explains why rebidders were most often recorded in areas of active NATO patrols and why this anomaly disappeared after the collapse of the USSR. Sailors of the Royal Navy of Great Britain, in turn, recorded similar noises, which they called bioducks, from the English onomatopoeia of quacking. These sounds were recorded in the waters around Australia, where in the 1960s, the most important nuclear testing grounds for the British fleet were located. Since patrols in these waters by the USSR or the USA were unlikely, the British also initially associated these sounds with marine life. It took scientists more than 50 years to establish the source of the bioducks. It turned out that the strange sounds are made by southern minke whales, whales that, before a deep dive, unexpectedly make this sound. Islands that don't exist. The history of cartography is full of mysteries. Old sea charts from the 17th to 18th centuries show islands that don't exist today. Hundreds of sailors swore that they saw land, landed on the shore, even described plants and animals. But after decades, these islands disappeared. Modern satellites confirm that there is only empty ocean in the marked places. The most famous example is Sandy Island in the Coral Sea. It was put on maps for almost 200 years. In 2012, Australian researchers decided to double-check the point and found nothing. Not a piece of land, not a trace of a reef, just a depth of 1.5 kilometers. But how then to explain hundreds of records of captains? A mass hallucination or a mistake by all at once? There are dozens of such cases. The islands of Brabant, Frederick, Emerald, which existed for centuries and suddenly disappeared. Scientists attribute everything to measurement errors, but the sailors left detailed reports, with drawings, descriptions of flora and fauna. Either the entire world navigation has been wrong for centuries, or we are faced with a phenomenon for which we simply have no explanation. There are versions that these were not islands, but objects that could rise from the water and go back into the depths. Perhaps volcanic formations, perhaps something else. Some ufologists believe that these could be bases or ships of giants that were disguised as land. Skeletons of giants. Strange notes can be found in the archives of the 19th and 20th centuries. Skeletons up to 3 meters tall were found in the burial mounds of North America. In the Andes, archaeologists spoke of jaws and skulls too large for a human, but almost all of these finds disappeared. Some blame the church, others blame state institutions that cleaned up inconvenient evidence. Myths of different peoples repeat the same thing. The Sumerians wrote about the Anunnaki, tall as towers. The Bible mentioned the Nephilim, sons of God who took earthly women for themselves. Indian tribes told of battles with giants who came from heaven and ate human flesh. Scientists explain the legends as fantasies and mistakes. But why is this motif found among peoples who are not related to each other? And why is it always associated with heaven and gods? If giants really existed, they could have been either another branch of humanity or hybrids of humans and aliens. In that case, the history of our planet is not only the evolution of Homo sapiens, but also coexistence with those who were much larger and stronger. Ram in the thicket. Southern Iraq. In 1928, Leonard Woolley opens up a royal cemetery and pulls out of the rubble what at first looks like a fallen wooden stick with lumps of metal. After restoration, a figure appears. An animal on its hind legs reaches for a branched bush structure. It was given a poetic nickname, Ram in the Thicket, although zoologically it is more likely a goat with curled horns. Age, about 2,550 BC, that is 4.5 thousand years. The figurines were found in a rich burial of a noble Sumerian, next to whom lay the sacrificial remains, 68 women and 5 men. This was a status ritual. A person did not go to the afterlife alone. The ram is made of wood covered with thin sheets of metal, copper gilding, inlaid with lapis lazuli and a shell. The diamond-shaped pattern on the base may refer to the mountains. The branched bush is often interpreted as the world tree, the connection between earth and sky. There is a practical version. The figurine served as stands for bowls for the ritual of sacrifice. The animal stands on its hind legs and supports a branch. A vessel with a drink or sacrificial liquid could be placed there during the ceremony. The Sumerian world is concentrated in one small thing: the sacrifice of the elite, the work of the best artisans, the symbolism of the cosmos, and practical altar inventory. The ram in the thicket reminds us that for ancient people, beauty, faith, and a household object lived peacefully in one, and that is why such artifacts survive thousands of years. A boulder from the Ice Age. Brendan Dudas, a 31-year-old teacher from Indianapolis, decided to remove a boulder that was blocking his lawn from mowing. He started digging and realized the boulder didn't end there. He carried out the soil in buckets and filmed the process on TikTok. The video went viral, garnering over 9 million views. The advice to call a crane proved to be accurate. Only with the help of a crane did it become clear that the boulder weighed over 10.3 tons. Dudas estimates that it could be 10,000 to 15,000 years old, the time of the last ice age. He kept the boulder and made it the focal point of his yard. He surrounded it with smaller rocks, added mulch and soil, and planted native plants. He says he plans to install lighting. Thus, the giant Ice Age boulder has become a local landmark. In an interview with People, he admitted that working with the boulder forced him to renovate the entire property. And according to neighbors, this has inspired others to take care of their yards. From a geological perspective, it's simple. A glacier once deposited the stone, and the soil gradually concealed it over many years. From a human perspective, this is a rare case where a problem becomes an excuse to clean up and leave a mark. The world's oldest runestone. Archaeologists in Norway have made a sensational discovery, possibly the oldest known runestone. Sandstone fragments with runes carved into them were found in separate graves at the ancient cemetery of Svingerud. Researchers have discovered that the pieces fit together like a puzzle, forming a single stone with a unique engraving. Runes are ancient letters used to write Germanic languages before the transition to the Latin alphabet. The origin of runic writing remains a subject of debate, but early alphabets were used before 700 AD. Dating the stone using radiocarbon analysis showed that it is between 50 BC and 275 AD, making it the oldest known runic monument. What is special about the find is that the inscriptions on the stone are an unusual mixture of runes and unknown symbols. The carvings may have been made by different people at different times, and the stone itself may have been reused. Researchers believe that it originally served as a memorial marker for one grave, but was later broken and redistributed among other burials. Faces on stone. A drought in the Brazilian region has caused water levels in the Amazon River to reach record lows, leading to the discovery of faces and other figures engraved on ancient stone that is more than 2,000 years old. These petroglyphs, including images of animals and other natural forms, were found on the banks of the Rio Negro at an archaeological site known as Ponto das Lajes, Place of the Slabs. Researchers estimate that the paintings are between 1,000 and 2,000 years old. The stones, in addition to images of faces and water, also have grooves, indicating that the site was used to create stone tools. Archaeologists discovered 25 groups of engravings on one rock. The find indicates that this place was used for sharpening various tools. In addition, fragments of ceramics were found at this site. Although Ponto das Lajes is recognized as an archaeological site, the petroglyphs have not yet been studied. What other secrets do you think the Amazon is hiding? Share your thoughts in the comments. Medieval chair. The Trossingen chair is a rare and valuable example of early medieval furniture. This wooden chair was found in a man's burial chamber in Trossingen, Germany, and dates back to around 580 AD. Made from maple and ash, it demonstrates the high level of craftsmanship of the ancient craftsmen. The chair is remarkably well preserved due to the fact that the burial was located in a marshy area, which created favorable conditions for preventing the decomposition of organic materials. The wood, although darkened over time, has retained its structure, allowing archaeologists to study the construction and style of manufacture. The find is in the collection of the Archaeological Museum of Baden-Württemberg in Constance, Germany. The Secret Wife. Berlin, Schloss Buch Church. Under the floor, restorers discovered a single sarcophagus from the late 18th century, carved and gilded, hidden from prying eyes as if its owner had foreseen that it would be sought even after death. All the details matched. This was Countess Julia von Voss, a lady-in-waiting to the legitimate queen and simultaneously the secret wife of Friedrich Wilhelm II. Their secret marriage took place in 1787 with the queen's approval, but their happiness was cut short 2 years later. Julia died of consumption and asked for rest in the very parish church where she was born. The Office for the Preservation of Monuments decided not to open the coffin. An ethical decision was more important than a sensational image, and the preservation of its unique structure was more important than a brief report. But even closed, the sarcophagus speaks of agreements at court, the price of personal will, and memories that can easily be rewritten without material evidence. And it's good that we have it. Rare artifacts from the Titanic. An alligator skin handbag and tiny perfume bottles that still exude a powerful scent are just a few of the precious artifacts found during the excavation of the sunken Titanic. The location of the warehouse containing these relics is a closely guarded secret, only known to be located in Atlanta, Georgia, USA. The shelves are filled with thousands of items, from an overturned bathtub and portholes to tiny buttons and glassware. Thomasina Ray, Director of Collections at RMS Titanic Inc., showed off an alligator skin handbag belonging to Marion Meanwell, a third-class passenger. Marion was a 63-year-old milliner who was traveling to the United States to visit her daughter. Her bag contained important documents and photographs. Her tragic fate was that she had originally booked a ticket for another ship, but ended up on the Titanic and was one of the 1,500 who died. Other artifacts include perfume bottles belonging to Adolf Saalfeld, a perfumer and first-class passenger who survived the disaster. The scent of the perfume can still be smelled today, despite the fact that it has been lying on the ocean floor for decades. The collection also includes a bottle of champagne with the drink inside, found among the many kitchen utensils on the ocean floor. The Titanic was a luxury liner, and there was a huge amount of champagne on board for the first-class passengers who enjoyed the highest level of comfort. The tableware on board reflected the class divisions: rough white ceramics for third class, exquisite gold-rimmed plates for first-class passengers. These objects helped to recreate the atmosphere of life on board. RMS Titanic Inc., the company that is authorized to retrieve artifacts from the ship, recently announced its desire to retrieve the Marconi radio that transmitted distress signals. Some believe that the sunken ship is a burial site that should be left alone. However, Thomasina Ray notes the importance of preserving the memory of the tragedy through these artifacts. What do you think? Should the ship be left alone, or should an attempt be made to raise it to dry land? Write your opinion in the comments below the video. A very expensive find. In August, Canadian mining company Lucara Diamond Corp announced the discovery of what is believed to be the second largest diamond in the world. It weighs 2492 carats. The stone was found in the Karo mine in Botswana, where another record-breaking diamond, the 1109-carat Lesedi La Rona, was found in 2015 and sold for $53 million 2 years later. The largest diamond in the world is still the famous Cullinan, weighing 3,106 carats, discovered in South Africa in 1905. To extract such impressive stones, the company used a specially developed tool, the Mega Diamond Recovery System, based on X-ray transmission. This technology is designed to find and extract huge gems that remain hidden in the bowels of the earth. Turned out not to be a man. In Jerusalem, archaeologists made an unexpected discovery while studying the burial place of an ascetic monk. It turned out that the remains belonged to a woman, which is not typical for monastic practices of that time. The grave was found in Kirbat el-Masan, where a Byzantine monastery was located in the 4th, the 7th centuries AD. Around the skeleton lay heavy iron shackles about 10 centimeters in diameter, which led scientists to initially assume that the deceased was a man. However, an analysis of the tooth enamel confirmed that it was a woman. This fact turns the idea of asceticism in the Byzantine Empire upside down. Although there are written sources about female ascetics, such as Melania the Elder and Melania the Roman, archaeological evidence of such practices is extremely rare. Iron shackles indicate extreme forms of self-restraint in the search for spiritual perfection. Until now, it was believed that such practices were exclusively male. The monastery was located on the pilgrimage route to Jerusalem, making it an important center not only for prayer but also a refuge for travelers. The discovery of this burial suggests that women played a more significant role in monastic communities than previously thought. Lost city where gold was mined. In the vicinity of Prague, archaeologists have discovered a multi-layered settlement combining artifacts from the Neolithic, Hallstatt, Latène, and medieval cultures. Over 9,000 objects were found, which led to the suspension of road construction. The earliest finds date back to the end of the 6th millennium BC. 8 long-columned houses, stone tools, and a workshop for processing polished stone. People lived here later up until the 5th century BC, as evidenced by 10 semi-underground houses from the Hallstatt and Latène periods. Among other artifacts, archaeologists have discovered exquisite ceramics with rich decor, bronze jewelry, and a handle from a drinking vessel probably brought from the Adriatic. All this indicates the existence of trade links with the southern regions. Scientists believe that the settlement was inhabited by representatives of the nobility who had access to rare resources. In addition, the researchers found several dozen round pits from the 13th century, which they believe were associated with gold exploration or mining. A large medieval gold mine was located nearby. The finds touch on several eras at once. Lednica Face. Poland, Lednica Lake. During work on the coastal zone of the First Piast fortress, archaeologists raised a 1.34-meter-long oak beam, part of the fortress hook that kept the rampart from falling apart. At one end, there is a carved human face, an oval rim, an arc above the forehead, a rounded chin. The size is approximately 13.5 by 10 centimeters. The face did not look into the fortress, but towards the water. Dendrochronology gave the exact age of the tree felling, around 960 to 975 AD, the same time when the prince's residence, chapel, and baptismal pools stood on Lednis Island. For the Slavs of the 10th century, carved human faces on building elements are a rarity. Here the image was brought out to the outside of the rampart as if someone addressed it to the lake. Perhaps this is the image of the spirit of water or the patron saint of the crossing. Perhaps a reminder of Christianity on the verge of paganism. The island is a key point of baptism of the Polish lands. They compare it with the Slavic anthropomorphic figurines from Wolan and four-faced idols. There are stylistic echoes but no direct analogies. The carved face is currently undergoing conservation. The wood is being stabilized so that it does not crack in the air. The plan is to display the find in the Museum of the First Piasts in the second half of 2026. The oldest Masonic artifact. This brass square is one of the earliest Masonic artifacts in the world. It was found in 1830 under the foundations of Baal Bridge in Limerick, Ireland. It dates back to 1507, making it an important piece of early Freemasonry. On one side are engraved the words, "I will strive to live with love and care," and on the other, "according to the compass and the square." These phrases echo the key principles of Freemasonry: honesty, justice, and brotherhood. The square and compass are traditional symbols of Freemasons, associated with rightness of action and equality of people. How this object ended up under the bridge is a mystery. Perhaps it was laid as a symbolic stone of good luck during construction. In any case, this is a rare artifact that gives an idea of the origins of Masonic traditions back in the early 16th century. Buddha wheels and devil's carousels. Marine bioluminescence, a phenomenon in which some marine life emits light, has been known for a long time. For example, some types of plankton are capable of creating light bright enough to be noticed by the human eye. This phenomenon is often associated with observations of a glow on the surface of the water or just below it. However, in addition to scientific explanations, there are also more mystical stories about mysterious circles on the water. These glowing rings are called Buddha wheels or devil's carousels. Interestingly, the former ones, according to one version, were so named by Eastern sailors and the latter by Europeans. The Chinese considered such phenomena to be favorable omens, while Europeans, in particular Christians, perceived them as a bad omen. Note how people in the West and East, observing the same natural phenomenon, interpret it completely oppositely. At the same time, despite the popularity of these stories, there is not a single official documented evidence of such phenomena. Perhaps the mysterious glowing circles are associated with marine plankton, which creates a bright glow in the darkness of the ocean. It is also worth noting that such stories about Buddha wheels and devil's carousels are often reflected in folklore, but so far remain only part of myths and legends, not confirmed by factual data. The oldest shipyard in the world. On the island of Dana, off the coast of the Turkish province of Mersin, the ruins of an ancient giant shipyard were discovered. With large amounts of iron ore and cedar, the island in the Cilician region has been a key center of trade and politics since the Bronze Age. 296 boathouses from different eras were found on the territory, which indicates the possibility of simultaneous construction of up to 300 warships. Ships were also maintained and repaired here. Most of the boathouses are carved out of rock and are classified according to their unique features. Some of them are only partially preserved due to destruction, and behind them structures, possibly for service boats, have been discovered. Some of the boathouses collapsed into the sea due to earthquakes. The mythical giant. The Cardiff Giant, a supposed petrified man 10 feet tall, was discovered in 1869 by workers digging a well in Cardiff, New York. The giant was actually a fake, made from a block of gypsum. It was taken to a farm in Cardiff where it was buried for a year before being discovered by workers. The idea for the giant was George Hull's, who wanted to prove the public's naivety and exploit people's religious beliefs about giant men mentioned in the Bible. After the giant was found, it became the subject of mass attention, with spectators paying to see it. Barnum, a famous showman, offered to buy the giant but was refused. He then created his own replica and claimed that his version was genuine and the original was a fake. In 1870, both giants were found to be fakes, but the Cardiff Giant went down in history as one of the greatest hoaxes of the 19th century. Glozal tablets. France, 1924. 17-year-old farmer Emile Fradon is plowing a field and stumbles upon a stone ring, and underneath it are clay tiles, bones, and beads. On the tiles are short lines of hundreds of strange signs resembling the Phoenician alphabet, runes, and something else. Teachers in the village of Glozal claim that the find doesn't fit into any textbook, and local elders say that there used to be a Templar chapel here. When archaeologists begin digging, the picture becomes even more confusing. In one pit, they find an 18th century iron knife, a Neolithic flint scraper, and a mysterious tablet. The controversy has been going on for almost a century. Some experts see the layer as an ordinary time dump where everything was thrown for centuries, while others suspect a deliberate forgery. Someone threw in the objects to attract attention to the village. However, thermoluminescent tests in the 1970s showed that some of the tablets were indeed burned 2,000 to 3,000 years ago, while another batch was burned only a few centuries ago. It seems that the original collection is ancient, but someone updated it with more recent copies. The mystery remains twofold. We cannot read a single sign, and we do not know who decided to add to the treasure by mixing up the eras. But thanks to this confusion, Glozal has turned into an open-air museum where the past and the forgery stand shoulder to shoulder, forcing everyone to decide which fragment of history to consider real. The Cypriot Terracotta Army. In November 1929, the priest Prokopios from the village of Agia Irini near Morpho accidentally came across a clay figurine of a man while cultivating a field. Realizing the value of the find, he saved it from being plundered and informed scientists. Thus began the history of the Cypriot Terracotta Army, a unique open-air sanctuary where about 2,000 clay statues were displayed in a semicircle around the altar. According to the Swedish archaeological expedition, among the statues there were warriors in armor, chariots, figures of bulls, and even bronze miniatures. Professor Theodoros Mavroyiannis dates the main finds to 625 BC, pointing out the details of clothing and the political situation of that period in the Mediterranean. Of the 2,000 statues found, 1,500 are now kept in the Stockholm Museum of Mediterranean and Near Eastern Antiquities. The rest are in the Cyprus Museum in Nicosia. Most Cypriots consider the removal of the artifacts to be robbery and demand that they be returned to their homeland. Shaman burial. On the banks of the Tigris River in Turkey, archaeologists have discovered a 12,000-year-old burial site that may belong to a female shaman. Her remains were found in the Neolithic settlement of Çimka Huyuk. Skeletons of wild animals were found next to her: partridge wings, marten paws, goat or sheep bones, and an aurochs skull. Researchers suggest that the woman could have been an intermediary between the world of people and spirits. Shamans played an important role in ancient societies, conducting rituals associated with nature and supernatural forces. The burial was carefully sealed with a limestone slab, which may indicate fear of the possible return of the deceased. There is a version that she was considered special or even dangerous to society. Archaeologists will conduct DNA and isotope analysis of the bones to find out who she was, what she ate, and what role she played in her tribe. Underground tunnels of Cusco. Mysterious underground Inca tunnels almost 2 kilometers long have been discovered in Peru. The discovery was made by archaeologists studying the ancient city of Cusco. The tunnels connected the fortress of Sacsayhuaman, the Temple of the Sun, and important religious buildings. The buildings, built from massive stones, are striking in their strength and engineering mastery. They are able to withstand the strongest earthquakes typical for the region. Scientists are sure that the Incas used these hidden paths for the secret movement of priests and military leaders between strategic and ritual sites. Despite legends about treasures, nothing has been found inside yet. Sword from the Vistula. Poland. The Vistula River, Tarkomin area. A fisherman notices a piece of iron sticking out of the water in the shallows, pulls it, and gets out a whole medieval sword. The blade is almost undamaged in the sediment. The guard, round pommel, and cross sign on the handle are visible. The fisherman immediately handed the weapon over to restorers in Warsaw. Experts confirmed the sword is genuine, dating back to the Middle Ages. They will say more precisely after analyzing the metal and the shape of the blade. The river constantly changes its course, washes away the banks, and brings to light what has been lying in the silt for centuries. So the weapon could have come off a boat, drowned during the crossing, or been thrown into the water after a battle. Now the blade is undergoing conservation. They will remove corrosion, stabilize the metal, check the microcuts of the edge, and try to count the hallmarks. For us, this is a chance to catch a living detail of medieval Poland. Not a museum copy, but a sword that lay for centuries in the Vistula River safe and chose the moment to return. Ancient sword in the river. A medieval sword was recently discovered in the depths of a Polish river, which experts say may have links to the Vikings. This sword is decorated with a mysterious inscription and is one of 8 similar artifacts found in Poland. The discovery was made during deep-sea exploration in the port of Włocławek, near Torun, a UNESCO-protected city. The sword, which had survived centuries of corrosion, was dated to the 10th century AD. This period is extremely significant for the history of Poland, linking the beginning of the formation of the state with the Piast dynasty. The sword could have witnessed the birth of the Polish nation. Historically, swords of this type are associated with northwestern Europe, suggesting Scandinavian or Frankish origin. However, the exact roots and connection to the Vikings remain a matter of debate among historians. Of particular interest is the inscription U Valfberth, found under layers of corrosion which may indicate the name Ulfbert. This name appears on swords found in northern Europe dating from the 9th to 11th centuries, adding to the mystery of the sword's history. Features of the Antikythera mechanism. In the depths of the sea off the island of Antikythera in 1901, a group of Greek divers encountered one of the most mysterious finds in the history of archaeology. They discovered a sunken ship that was carrying treasures from the ancient world, including statues, jewelry, and, most strikingly, a complex piece of machinery that had been oxidized and littered with sea sediment. This object, which became known as the Antikythera mechanism, is shrouded in the mysteries of the past and is the subject of much research today. The mechanism, made of bronze, is a complex system of gears and levers consisting of 30 mechanical components housed in a wooden frame. The structure of the mechanism testifies to the high level of knowledge and technical skills of its creators. This artifact demonstrates an amazing mastery of metalworking and knowledge of astronomy. 3D scanning and X-ray tomography allowed scientists to delve deeper into the structure of the mechanism and understand its operation. These methods made it possible to examine every detail of the device without the risk of damaging it. Thanks to these technologies, it was discovered that the mechanism includes a series of gears capable of predicting the astronomical positions and ephemeris of the Sun, Moon, as well as other planets in the solar system. The main function of the Antikythera mechanism was astronomical modeling. The device was used to calculate and predict solar and lunar eclipses, as well as to determine the phases of the Moon and possibly the positions of the planets. This discovery greatly expanded the understanding of how advanced technology and scientific knowledge were in ancient Greece, confirming their ability to create complex computing devices many centuries before the invention of digital computers. However, many mysteries of the Antikythera mechanism remain unsolved. For example, the exact purpose of some components and scales, as well as the entire list of its functions, are not fully understood. In addition, it remains unclear who exactly created this mechanism and whether other similar devices were created that could provide additional clues about the technological advances of the era. The Antikythera mechanism remains a symbol of ancient Greek engineering, a reminder that the history of technology and science is still full of unexplored pages. New secrets of the Sambalek plate. The ancient stone slab of Sambalek, 4,000 years old, has been actively studied by scientists since its discovery in 2014 in a French mound. In 2021, it received the status of the oldest map of Europe. Researchers believe the slab may contain clues to treasure based on the designs and symbols carved into it. This unique slate artifact was first found in Finistère, western France, in 1900. But the mystery of the slab remained unsolved, and it lay in the castle for more than a century until scientists began studying it again. The slab, measuring 2 by 1.5 meters according to experts, is a map of the Brittany region. Rivers, mountains, and other natural features are engraved on it. Interestingly, the depressions on the slab may indicate ancient settlements or burial mounds. When comparing the drawings with modern maps of Brittany, an astonishing 80% agreement was found. Research into this ancient map continues. It covers an area of 30 by 21 kilometers, and it may take scientists up to 15 years to fully study it. Excavations near the site of the slab have already yielded new fragments used in the construction of ancient tombs. Ritual cargo from the Philippines. Guam Island is on the western edge of the Pacific Ocean, 2,300 kilometers east of the Philippines. In the coastal Ritidian Cave, archaeologists found microscopic remains of rice in red ceramics. The age, according to radiocarbon, is 3,500 to 3,100 years. This is the earliest evidence of the delivery of a cultivated plant to such a distant island. The key evidence is phytoliths, tiny silica structures that preserve the shape of leaves and husks after the decomposition of the plant. A team from the University of Guam and the Australian National University examined the shards with micro-CT scanning and petrographic analysis. The shapes of the phytoliths matched Asian rice varieties. There are no tools for cultivating fields or traces of irrigation nearby, which means that the grains were not brought for farming. Researchers are leaning towards the version of ritual baggage. Rice could have been used in rituals or as a symbol of connection with the homeland of the settlers. This is the only pre-European use of rice in the Mariana Islands. The plant would not appear on other remote atolls for 2,000 years. The find confirms that the first Pacific explorers did not drift with the currents, but planned their route and carried elements of culture with them, even if they could not be grown on the new shore. Champagne at the bottom of the sea. May diving off the Polish Hel Peninsula, Gdansk Bay, brought a double discovery. At a depth of 60 to 70 meters, Baltic Tech specialists, instead of the sought-after submarine from the Second World War, came across two 18th-century sailing ships lying 2 kilometers from each other. The first ship is loaded with green glass bottles and stone jugs. Analysis of the liquid is still ahead, but based on experience from previous salvages, some of the bottles probably contain champagne and natural mineral water seltzers. Then it was considered almost a medicine and was supplied to the royal courts, including St. Petersburg. The second ship was built a little later at the end of the 18th century. The hull is well preserved. Low temperatures and weak currents of the Baltic slow down the decomposition of the wood. Both objects are located directly under a modern shipping route, so raising to the surface is unlikely. Archaeologists will work with robots and photogrammetry. The find confirms the vibrant Baltic Northern Europe-Russia trade long before steamships and shows that the shallow seabed remains an archive where commercial voyages become time capsules. Martian coral. On July 24, 2025, the Curiosity rover sent a picture that initially made scientists freeze. On the rock was a shape that was all too familiar to us from Earth. It looked like coral. A real fossilized coral is evidence that Mars could once have had an ocean full of life. NASA was quick to explain, no biology, just minerals that took on a bizarre shape due to water and wind erosion. A rock, not an organism. Our brain itself draws familiar images where there are none. The official version sounds logical. Too logical. But how many times have we heard the same thing? A rock accidentally looks like a statue. A shadow accidentally looks like a tower. A shape accidentally repeats the pattern of a living creature. At what point does the number of these coincidences become proof? Maybe this really is a trick of nature. Or maybe we're just not ready to hear the main thing. Mars was alive, and that's why we're so drawn there, because deep down, we're returning home. Over 100,000 years old. Researchers continue to unravel the mysteries of our evolution, now discovering unusual 115,000-year-old footprints in northern Saudi Arabia. The tracks, preserved in a former mud pit in the middle of the Nafud Desert, have astonished scientists by appearing in a place where such ancient human tracks were not expected. The tracks are estimated to belong to early Homo sapiens rather than Neanderthals, confirming the migration routes of human ancestors in a changing climate. Thanks to a surprising combination of factors, the absence of strong winds and the local climate, the structure of the tracks has remained virtually intact, allowing them to be accurately dated and reconstructed as a short-term stopover by Lake Alatar during a dry period. The site appears to have served as a rest and watering place rather than a permanent settlement, as evidenced by the lack of tool or hunting traces. Some scientists believe that these tracks fit into the general migration route by which Homo sapiens moved from Africa to Eurasia. The new findings change our view of migration routes and clearly demonstrate how nature can carefully preserve the chronicle of life. Jade mask. Archaeologists have made an important discovery in the dense rainforests of Guatemala in a place called Xochcutam. They discovered a woven jade mask believed to have belonged to an unknown Mayan king who lived about 1,700 years ago. This find may shed light on Mayan religious devotion and royal succession during the early Classic period. It also supports the hypothesis that members of the Maya royal families may have been enslaved by more powerful Mesoamerican dynasties. In addition to the mask, archaeologists found a skull, teeth, a skull-shaped stone box, and numerous offerings at Xochcutam, including shells, bones, and shiny pieces of jade. Alexander Tocquevinin, an expert in Mayan epigraphy, helped decipher the glyphs on the bones and identified the human remains as the Itzam ruler Kokai Balam. And the deity depicted on the mask turned out to be Yax Wayab Chakak. He is the incarnation of the Maya god of storms. America was discovered 7,000 years earlier. The authors of a new study from the University of Bournemouth in the UK presented evidence indicating that the first people settled North America not 14,000, but at least 23,000 years ago. This date was identified based on the analysis of ancient human traces and fossilized plants. Until recently, it was believed that the appearance of humans on the continent occurred through a corridor formed due to the melting of ice 14,000 years ago. Scientists claim that at the beginning of the 21st century, hypotheses about an earlier settlement of the continent appeared. Radiocarbon dating of seeds found alongside human footprints has been criticized. It was argued that the seeds could have absorbed old salty water, which would have skewed the dating results. To disprove this theory, the researchers used flow cytometry, a technique commonly used to analyze human cells. This method allowed scientists to isolate and study individual particles of vegetation. The second method, optically stimulated luminescence, also confirmed the antiquity of the traces, based on dating the grains of ancient plants. Thus, new methods of analysis confirm the previous conclusions of scientists, indicating that the history of the first inhabitants of North America requires revision. The connection between past and present archaeologists. While excavating an ancient Gaulish settlement near the town of Yeu in northern France, archaeology students discovered a 200-year-old message in a glass bottle. The bottle was hidden in a clay pot along with 2 coins. The message was left by 19th century archaeologist Ferret, who had worked on the same site almost 2 centuries earlier. Written in January 1825, the message reads, P.J. Ferret, a native of Dieppe, a member of various intellectual societies, carried out excavations here in January 1825. He continues his researches in this area known as the Citadel of Limes, or the Camp of Caesar. The excavations, led by archaeologist Guillaume Blondel, were originally aimed at investigating an ancient Gaulish settlement located on the cliffs near Dieppe. The site is subject to erosion, which has forced emergency excavations. The team has already found numerous artifacts dating back 2,000 years, including pottery shards. Ferret's report not only documents the history of the research, but also creates a rare link between past and present archaeologists. Globster mermaid. The masses of unrecognizable organic matter that occasionally wash up on beaches are called globsters. These may be the remains of sea creatures, but without clearly defined features, they are difficult to identify. Another such object found in Papua New Guinea quickly became an internet sensation. It is called a mermaid or sea monster. The mysterious globster was discovered on Simberi Island, a small volcanic island in Papua New Guinea. The find attracted a lot of attention because of its strange shape. It had a tail, but many other parts were missing. Scientists are still trying to understand what it is. A whale, a dolphin, a dugong, a shark, or a mermaid? Photos of this mystical creature quickly went viral on social networks. Jens Curry from the Pacific Whale Foundation believes it could be a sea cow found off the island's coast. On the other hand, Sasha Hooker from the University of St. Andrews in Scotland believes that it was a cetacean. The exact origins of the globster will likely remain a mystery because local people buried it, and DNA analysis is not possible. Who do you think it could be? Log coffin culture. An ancient legacy left by a culture that flourished in northwestern Thailand is surprising archaeologists with its unique burial customs. Some 40 burial sites where people found their final rest in teak coffins decorated with intricate designs testify to a highly developed Iron Age culture. Researchers from Germany and Thailand analyzed the DNA of ancient people to uncover connections between different communities. Between 2300 and 1000 BC, a mysterious culture flourished in Mae Hong Son province. DNA analysis of 33 ancient people from 5 coffins found that genetic relatedness played a key role in burial traditions, highlighting the importance of family ties in choosing a burial site. The study was a breakthrough in Southeast Asian archaeology, providing the first analysis of genetic and cultural relationships at the level of ancient communities. Despite the difficulty of preserving DNA in tropical climates, scientists have identified 2 major genetic lineages linked to agriculture, indicating deep connections to the Yangtze and Yellow River valleys in China. First step from the water. Not far from Edinburgh, in an abandoned quarry, paleontologists lifted a slab of volcanic ash and saw a tiny skeleton, only 10 centimeters, but with distinct paws and a paddle-like tail. They called the find West Lothiana. It no longer has gills, which means it breathed air, but its skin is smooth. It is still afraid of drying out. Analysis of zircons showed the age, 346 million years. 14 million before the official exit of vertebrates to land. The paws already hint at the future. Tiny wrists and fingers, almost like ours. The animal lived on the edge of a swamp, crawled out for insects, and instantly rolled back into the water. One such compromise organism moves the starting line of terrestrial evolution and shows that there are still many empty cells in the ancient calendar. Scientists brewed an ancient drink. Israeli researchers decided to plunge into the world of experimental archaeology and create a drink that our ancestors drank. It all started with the discovery of yeast residues in ancient clay shards during excavations in Israel. These specimens, dating back to 3000 BC, were found in various locations, including Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, and an Egyptian brewery near the Gaza Strip. Archaeologists and microbiologists have teamed up to study and resurrect ancient yeast. Researchers were able to bring yeast colonies back to life and use them to create an ancient drink that tastes like the beer that the Philistines and Egyptians drank. For the experiment, scientists used recipes for ancient drinks, creating beer and mead. Some modern changes were made to the brewing process, such as the addition of hops, which were not present in the ancient Near East. This made it possible to create a drink with a unique taste, combining ancient traditions and modern technologies. According to Shmuel Naki, a brewer at the Jerusalem Beer Center, the drink tasted spicy, a little fruity, and very complex. Yeast played a key role in creating these flavor characteristics, confirming the importance of its use in brewing. The success of this experiment inspired scientists and brewers to further research. The team's plans include using the revived yeast to create new types of beer based on ancient recipes. This cooperation will not only expand the line of Israeli beer, but also provide a deeper understanding of the culture and traditions of ancient peoples. Would you like to try a drink based on ancient yeast? Could you go that deep into the history of brewing? In the meantime, you write a comment under the video. I want to recommend you to watch my past videos, which are no less interesting. Thanks for your views. Bye, everyone.